Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bearcats Mean Business, the official podcast of the University of Cincinnati's Carl H. Lindner College of Business. My name is Becky Williamson, Director of Learning and Instructional Design at Lindner. Today's episode is an instructional design takeover. I'm joined by my two colleagues on Lindner's Learning and Instructional Design team, Senior Instructional Designer Kelly McCullough and Instructional Designer Vicki Buckley. We're here to talk about how instructional design impacts the student experience, experiential education at Lindner, and more. Welcome, Kelly, Vicki. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started. Not a lot of people know what instructional design is or what instructional designers do. I've had people assume that I've said industrial design or interior design, and they ask me about that stuff, and I know nothing about either one of those. So I'm wondering, how do you describe our work to someone you've just met at a cocktail party or a neighborhood cookout or at the grocery store?
Yeah, so I typically say I'm the person behind the scenes, helping our faculty build their courses, think about how they teach, and really bring best practices in learning science to the classroom.
Yeah, and depends on the audience, but if I want to keep it light and quick, I usually just say I help teachers teach, or I teach the teachers how to teach, which can get a little meta and confusing if you think about it too much. But overall, I like to talk about how I organize and present information and help people to do that to maximize their learning.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, I like that too. And I get a lot of responses from people who are like, oh, I didn't know that that was a thing that you could do.
Right.
Or, oh, I'm so happy that there are people helping instructors think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thinking about what is important in instructional design, how can good instructional design impact the student experience and student engagement in class? What do we think about that?
Well, I think the bottom line is that good instructional design increases positive student learning outcomes. Mm-hmm. If you have good design, and the other side of that is good teaching, obviously, good delivery. Students learn better.
Yeah.
And are more engaged and more wanting to come to class. There's been lots of research on coming to class is a main predictor of success in class. And if your students are engaged and feel like your content is relevant and presented in a way that is meaningful to them, and I think instructional design can help with that, and I think that's going to help your student retention and help their learning as well.
And I think that's even more prevalent after the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Like we've seen some dips in student attendance in class. So anything that we can do to support students actually coming and being excited to be there, I think is great.
And seeing how what they're learning impacts their day-to-day life, making those connections for them.
So in addition to face-to-face teaching, we also work a lot with faculty developing courses for Lindner's online programs. What can students expect out of those courses, and what are some of the myths about studying online that you'd like to dispel?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think one thing is people think about online learning and they think about, I am a student here with my computer and it's just me and my computer. And our faculty are so involved in courses and spend time interacting with students. You will get to know your faculty member even if they are online and you're not having face-to-face meetings with them. I think you see their personality come through in their videos. You see their personality come through in the announcements that they send. Our faculty have online office hours where you can come ask them questions. I think it's that kind of personalized as much as can be in an online experience that maybe is not what people are thinking about.
Yeah, I think we work really hard to get away from the transactional nature that some online courses can be. We are not MOOCs, massive open online courses. There's a lot of interaction and engagement that happens, and I think that's part of our special Lindner brand. I also sometimes hear that online courses take less time than face-to-face, and that is absolutely not true.
Right.
We just had a conversation yesterday about how we want our faculty and our students to kind of see online and face-to-face as the same course. They're not, they're different for sure, but
they have the same learning objectives. It's the same faculty teaching in both, and to try to think about them in the same way.
Yeah.
An online course isn't easier.
Yep.
It's not quicker.
Right.
It's the same course just delivered in a different format.
Yeah, absolutely.
Longtime listeners of the podcast know that UC is known for co-ops and that Lindner is focused both on experiential education and bringing cutting-edge research into the classroom. How does instructional design support Lindner's goals in these areas?
Okay, so I'm going to defer to Vicki on this
Sure.
because I just want to shout out to her for all the research she has done on experiential education
Yes.
in the business
Thanks.
school environment.
Yeah.
And she's currently serving on a working group that's looking into this issue for Lindner.
Thanks, Kelly. And it's been really fun to see that the things we are doing align with what's happening around the U.S. and a little bit globally as well. In experiential education, we are bringing in simulations, role plays, like negotiations, a bunch of like one-off activities, but anything where students can connect what's happening in the classroom to the outside world, like outside Lindner's campus. So we're doing a ton of stuff here. We, I think, have a really nice vantage point where we see what other instructors are doing and then can also share that with our own groups. So each one of us specializes with different departments. So I can talk to Kelly, see what's going on in accounting, and then share that with my faculty in information systems. We love to share resources on what's new and happening outside, and then we kind of get to cheer faculty on. I think one of my favorite things is when a faculty member is trying something new, and then we get to hear about it, help them reflect on it, and then maybe retool or shift some things for the next semester.
I think that's great. And I think the other thing I would add there is that we have lots of instructors who come from industry and have experience to bring into the classroom and are talking about how they've seen this happen in the classroom or in the real world.
Yeah.
But then also have connections in industry too.
Yeah.
And so they're able to bring in guest speakers from the Bengals or guest speakers from P&G or to really bring that experience into a classroom too. And you don't necessarily get that at a place that's not in the middle of an urban city.
Yeah, and like the company partnerships for a lot of our first year experience and mid to late experience courses too. Like you're working with actual companies and making recommendations and observations that impact their business, and that's so unique and really neat.
Yeah, I heard yesterday from a faculty member who had a student hired from the company that they were doing their simulation for in like a capstone type of class where they had done a group project for a specific company, and that company was so impressed that they hired the student for like a summer job or something.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, I think, the opportunities that are there.
For sure.
So what do y'all think is important for people considering coming to Lindner to know about our work?
I think that we're here and
Yeah.
that Vicki said that we work with different departments, but we also work a lot with each other. So we are sharing ideas amongst faculty, and we are sharing ideas about best practices in education and higher education. I think it's important for people to know that those kinds of resources exist and that faculty here have that support.
Yeah, and I would also echo our network extends outside of Lindner too. So there are instructional designers all over campus.
Yes.
And think about CCM or nursing. They do things a little bit differently. So we're constantly learning from our colleagues and connected to them. And if a faculty member has a great idea and we don't know how to pull it off, like we have people that we can go to also help.
And even more broadly than that, Kelly's going to a nationwide teaching and learning
Yeah.
conference in a few weeks. So we are extended more broadly even than just UC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to the Teaching Professor Conference in New Orleans, and I've heard good things about it from other people who have gone to this particular conference. I'm excited.
Yeah. So Lindner faculty are a talented and very committed bunch, as we all know. What are some of the really neat things that we've seen our faculty do in classes that students won't necessarily see elsewhere?
I have been thinking a lot about this question because it is hard to pick just one. So I'll give a recent example. Craig Fraley, who teaches in OBAS, had his students do an egg drop challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So do you remember this?
Yes,
we went to
we
watch
were,
it. Yeah. So the egg drop challenge where you have to drop a raw egg from, in case listeners don't know, drop a raw egg from a height and you try to build some kind of container around the egg so that it won't break when you drop it. So he, in his class, it was a grad class, and he broke the students into groups, and half of the groups had to develop their own kind of engineering their own structure for the egg, and half the groups used ChatGPT to develop a structure, a protective padding for the egg. And the caveat there was you had to do exactly what ChatGPT told you to do. So if it went crazy and hallucinated something, you had to do that. Your group had to do that. And then they did it here in the atrium at Lindner. So they started on the second floor, and he had coned off a big area on the floor. So like, don't step here.
Yeah.
There was plastic everywhere in case the eggs really shattered. And they dropped them all. And then whoever made it through the first round went up to the, moved from the second floor up to the third floor. And I don't think anybody made it quite up to the fourth floor. But I thought it was a really fun challenge and a way to show that sometimes I think a human engineered team won, although I should have checked with Craig before we did this. But it's a nice way to see, what are the benefits of both. And if you were doing the research on your own and coming up with instructions, because everybody's egg crate looked different, right? And then if you're trusting AI to come up with these instructions for you, is that actually your best bet? And are you getting what you need from that? So I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think incorporating AI into our teaching and learning is something that's a really big deal, and we have several communities of practice this summer who are exploring that particular subject. What I really appreciate is the fact that, as Vicki was saying, they really managed to bring in a sense of the real world through active learning, through using real data from real companies in semester-long projects, and doing role plays where students are troubleshooting authentic business problems. So I really appreciate that. And I also think our faculty are great at the element of human connection, following up with students, reaching out to them, forming genuine relationships. And that happens online and face-to-face. So that's what I really appreciate.
Yeah.
We've each been at a number of different colleges and universities in a variety of capacities. What's something special at Lindner that keeps you energized here?
I love that we want and desire to be the first college to pilot something. I don't think Lindner has ever seen an opportunity and said, no, we'll just sit back and wait. And I think that gives us that gives me energy, and I think it gives the college energy because we try things, we implement new things, we collaborate with colleagues to make things work and test and, retool. So I love that. I think that gives us a lot of wiggle room too, because we can play, we can try new things in the classroom and see what works for students and what students respond to, because Lindner isn't afraid to take that first step.
To bring up something we were already talking about today in our summer book club reading, we've been reading a lot about pedagogy, which we do every summer, and we really investigate some of the theory behind what informs our field. So there's this long-standing tension in higher ed between, on one hand, job training versus, on the other hand, this sort of lofty ivory tower sense of like critical reflection and critical thinking. I really love how Lindner brings together both values in that sense of business problem solvers, that we have a valuing of critical thinking within some very practical, specific job training. So I think it combines both of those things to produce business problem solvers with ethics.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I like that. I would say for me, the thing that is special at Lindner is the people. So one of you had already mentioned how instructors care. I think Kelly owes you.
Yeah.
Your instructors will build relationships with you, and they care about you. And I would extend that to all of Lindner. I think everybody here is very energized about what they're doing and making the student experience the best that it can be. And I know we certainly are in our role.
Yeah. I think I view our role as supporting students through faculty, but absolutely we're here to enhance the student experience. Yeah.
So one thing I'm interested in is your own personal journeys to becoming instructional designers. Tell us how you got here.
It's been a bit of a wavy journey for me. I've kind of done a little bit of everything. So I started in student affairs. So I have a master's in student affairs administration from Ball State University, and thought I would just work with the student experience the whole way through. So I was a hall director for many, many years. I worked in academic advising here in Lindner, and then transitioned to career services, and then decided I have experience working with courses. I like the back end components, but don't necessarily need to be in front in a classroom all the time. So decided to make a shift here. I do still teach. I have one foot in the classroom. I'm an adjunct instructor over in CECH, teaching future teachers instructional design principles. And that's just enough for me to feel like I'm dipping my toes in and staying relevant, but doing the work that I love primarily, which is IDE.
Yeah. So I'm similar to Vicki in that I've had a wavy career, but still always in higher ed. I got a PhD in English literature and became an English professor at a small liberal arts college down in Tennessee for several years, and then moved up to Ohio and was teaching at Wright State University. And I had a dean who said, hey, instructional design classes are a great form of professional development if you want to improve your teaching skills. So I started taking classes, and I loved them. I loved them so much that I kept taking classes, ended up with another master's degree, and then I made the jump into instructional design full-time.
Yes. I think it's funny because all of us have kind of wavy journeys. Like, none of us started out with this in mind. And I didn't either. I started out working on a PhD in archaeology at the University of Washington in Seattle and taught a bunch of intro archaeology classes, which is awesome. Yeah. But I had really struggled with I had 150 students in the winter in Seattle, and how do I bring archaeology to them because I can't take them to the field. And then I had an opportunity there to work as a graduate student instructional consultant with other graduate students and working on their teaching. And that's kind of what got me into instructional design. And then I took some classes at UW and then got a master's from Harvard and then started working in instructional design at Boston University and was there for a few years and then made the jump here. So it's fun because it's all, and I also still teach. Mm-hmm. Kelly, you teach as well. Yeah. So we're all still current teachers, which I think informs a lot of our work as well and gives us some credibility with instructors here at Lindner too. I can talk a lot about what I do in my class. I have invited folks to my class to come see how I teach. I show people my canvas. I mean, I think it adds a little bit to what we do here. Absolutely. To be involved. Well, that's it for us. I want to thank both Kelly McCullough and Vicki Buckley for joining me to talk about how instructional design supports student success at Lindner. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review so we can continue to bring our listeners enjoyable content on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, and Audible. On the next episode of Bearcats Mean Business, Lindner Dean Marianne Lewis chats with Greg Fusaro, a longtime champion of the UC Real Estate Center, who is being honored at the center's annual dinner on June 12th. Thanks for tuning in. Go Bearcats!